Welcome back to Recruiter.com. In this next video on information formulas, we're going to be going over if statements that contain is formulas. Let's get started. All right, let's start with this information formulas table here. And the first thing I want you to note is that all of the formulas begin with is. Now, thinking about everyday language and how we talk and ask questions that begin with the word is, we're usually looking for a yes or a no answer. So for example, if I'm asking, is the coffee brewing? I'm looking for a yes or no answer saying it is or it isn't. But with Excel, instead of saying yes or no, instead returns true or false. So let's begin just by typing is error, and you'll notice that all of these formulas here that begin with is, all they're looking for is just one value. There's only one argument that it's looking for. So let's just take the cost and close up the parentheses, and obviously you can tell that the cost here, $216.58, that's not an error. But let's go ahead and test it on text. Is this value here, is that text? Obviously it's not text. But let's go ahead and put number. Is this a number? And sure enough, we'll get true. Okay, let's just finish this up. Is this blank? Obviously that's not blank, but let's put it there. Is this odd? Ends in 58, so no. Is it even? And of course it's even, so true. And is formula, and yes, that's a formula. So behind here, if you can all open it up, it's a VLOOKUP formula that I've put in there. So that is a formula. Now the question is when would we typically use this type of a formula? When would this be useful to use in everyday life? Well, let's begin and start talking about some if statements. And before we write this if statement, let's first go ahead and take a peek at this table here. And just note that this is an item ID, so if you're in manufacturing or supply chain or purchasing, you're probably familiar with item IDs, and you can see that there's an associated cost to each item that we have in stock. And we're over here in this table just doing a lookup on one individual item ID, which is 11290, and the cost associated with it is $216.58. But if we change it to 11253, which is right here, that's $84.28. So that does come back and it's working correctly. Now let's go ahead and write our first if statement. All right, so in this first formula, I'm going to type the if statement, and if, just as a reminder, we're first looking for a logic test. So in the if statement, it's looking for a true or a false answer. And since all of these formulas return true or false answers, it's a perfect spot for this formula, putting in the logic test here. So if is error, and the value I'm going to look at is this cost. If this returns false or true, so if it's true, if that is an error, then I want to alert myself that, hey, I've got an error with the cost. Otherwise, I want to let myself know that everything's okay and I don't need to worry about anything with the formulas. So right now it says okay. You can see that it returns false here. We've done this earlier. But let's go ahead and make this a true statement for when it is an error. And that would be if I put an item ID outside of the item IDs in this range. So if I did 11250, which is before this item ID, because these are in numerical order, that's outside the range. It can't find it. Returns NA. It's now true. So I can easily get something that can identify me when I'm working in my spreadsheet that there's an error, there's something wrong, and I know I've actually pinpointed it to saying it's something wrong with the cost. So that's what's cool about that. Now let's go ahead and type in a text formula. So if is text this cost, then go ahead and say text as cost, or say okay, like everything's fine. And right now everything's okay. As you can still see though, there is an error with cost. There's nothing wrong with it as a text. So let's switch this back to saying 11252 and 43806. But what if I'm in this spreadsheet and I accidentally hit just the letter J when I was on there and I skipped around to something else? I would have never known that I had hit J unless I had something telling me, hey, you've got something that's text as cost, so you need to go fix that. Now I have that alert, so everything's fine. So I can easily see that, oh, yep, this is a cost and it's a J. It should be a number. It's actually a letter. I need to fix that. Same thing with this. So real quickly, I'm just going to put this one in. If is number, this guy, then if it is a number, then everything's okay, right? I want it to be a number. But if it's not a number, then I want to say not a number and alert myself. So this one's saying not a text as cost and it's not a number. So two things that are alerting me that there's something wrong. Let me change this back to 604.53. Good enough. I'm back to all goods. Now is blank. So with this one, if is blank, we literally need to have a blank cell. So if that's blank, then I want to say blank cost. Otherwise say okay. And what I mean by that is the referenced cell cannot be blank. You can see it still returns okay because it's returning a 0 as a blank over here. But I have to delete this formula. So if that formula gets deleted accidentally by someone, then we can be notified that, hey, the cost is blank. As well as right here, so I'm just going to put in the formula for this one. So if is formula this, if that is not a formula, so if it is a formula, that's good. So I'm just going to say okay. But if it's not a formula, there's an issue. So missing formula. And that comes back perfect. So these are great information formulas that you can go ahead and use and help verify the integrity of your worksheet, or even check it against any data that you have that you want to go ahead and put some type of an if statement formula in. Okay, so let's quickly use this is blank and apply it to this item ID table. So I'm going to copy this over and type in the price. So let's say I'm trying to make a price of this item ID, so it's going to be at least the cost times 1.5. So I'm going to mark it up 150%. And I want to put a check next to here. So actually, check. Let's drag this down real quick. Actually, I'm just going to double click it, drop it down. And the check is blank. So I'm going to look for, is there any spots there's blanks here? Well, obviously there's not because I just dragged the formula down, but I'm going to put in some blanks. And now I'm going to say, all right, so if is blank, this cell, the price, I want to go ahead and redo that formula. So instead of putting text like we were always typing stuff here, so I'm going to say do that formula again at this point because that's what I need there. I need to know what the new price is. It has not yet been established. So I'm going to take the cost, times it by the 1.5 to mark it up 150%. Then if it's false, I just want to leave it blank. So two double quotes will leave it blank. And then close it up. And obviously this is the price is here, so it's blank. Use the double quotes. I'm going to double click, bring it down, and right here. So you can see these three all were missing one, and that easily alerts me that there's something missing. So this is a perfect example of how to use the blank is blank within an if statement, and then also if that's true, go ahead and do a formula.